Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Partition Museum's very first poetry open mic event. We'll just wait for a few more people before we begin. Okay, so I'm Nanki here from the Partition Museum, and I'm very excited to be organizing and hosting this event on behalf of the museum. The Partition Museum, which is situated in Amritsar, is a people's museum, and it houses one of the largest collections on partition memories. So on this International Museum Day, the Partition Museum has decided to highlight some of the poems which are based on the theme of partition, which have been sent in by our viewers. And we want to delve into the inspiration and the memories behind these poems. And through this event, we also wish to connect the younger generation with the history of the partition. So today we will be interacting with 5 very talented poets who shared their poems with us, and we shall be delving into the inspiration behind these poems. And our very first poet to join us today is Amrita, who will be reciting and explaining her poem on Dadima.
Hi,
Hello, Amrita. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Before we begin with you reciting your poem, could you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, my name's Amrita. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name's Amrita. I'm from Patiala, and I've lived in Patiala almost all my life, except when I was studying in Delhi. So I'm, somewhere caught between these two places, and I feel equally at home in both these places. My grandparents, my paternal grandparents, came from Lahore after the partition of 1947, and they settled in Delhi for a long time, and eventually they came to Patiala and settled here. So the poem I'm in fact going to be reciting is also an ode to my grandmother, my Dadima, who was born in Pakpatan. It's a village near Lahore, and she lived in Lahore almost her entire life until 1947. So that's the piece I want to share with everyone today.
Okay, lovely. So could you please recite it?
Yes, this is titled An Ode to My Grandmother. Here it is. I found Lahore in your belongings last night. There she was, nestling among the pages of the book that you bought from Minerva in Anarkali, the one about mythological heroes of the land. Lahore smiled at me from the class photograph. 1945 BA English Honours, Kinnaird College. A fierce legacy glowing in the eyes of those women, who could not have known when they penned the messages of farewell and encouragement for you, how final and prophetic their words would be. I catch Lahore laughing up at me from the pages of your diary, where you kept a record of how having sisters and brothers, younger and older, can make for an endless tale of mirth and tears, as you play at kings and queens in the gardens of that house on the tree-lined avenue of Model Town. Lahore stares dreamily out at me from the letters and poems that you wrote to him, words of love and revolution. As you both waited to begin a life together in a Lahore that was unshackled and yours to build. She tells me that your heart has lain safe with her all these years, waiting, untethered from you. Lahore asks me when you will return to meet her. She tells me that the house in Model Town waits. She asks after my father, my uncle, my aunts, my cousins, my brother and me, all the children it never could meet. She weeps brokenly for never getting to say goodbye to those who no longer remain. Lahore whispers to me a wrenching tale of loss. She tells me of the blankness in your face and the heaviness of your steps as you gathered a few fragments of the life that was to be lived in her company and put it away in large black trunks. Those trunks now lie forgotten in a dark corner of your new life across that capricious line that they named border, splitting you into two halves. Then I speak to tell Lahore of the half that left. I tell her how you watched a nation take birth, how you listened to talk of trysts with destiny, and thought only of the curtains that you had picked to be hung in the house that you stepped into as a bride, how they will now be shrouds, how cries of freedom turn to wails of death in your ears. I paint for Lahore a picture of your life serving those like you who had lost something of their selves to time, to age, to cruelty, to freedom. Then I take Lahore's hand and I journey with her through the 7 decades that stretch between us. Lahore smiles to see you now. It asks of me whether you're happy here. I can only look at her silently, because I cannot say if you are. Are you happy? Can anyone be with half of them in a home that is no longer theirs, taken away by just a line on paper? I, who have never known a home other than this, how do I decide if you're happy? Away from the land of your birth, away from Lahore, the place that my people say you're not truly born until you see. Just Lahore nahi vekhya, or jammya nahi, they say. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that really emotional poem with all of us and our viewers. I mean, the way you've captured your grandmother's story and the story of those hundreds and thousands who had to leave behind their homes and look for new homes. So, what exactly inspired you or pushed you to write this?
I think the biggest inspiration is the stories I've, listened to growing up. There've been so many stories that my grandmother's told us. And it's more than the stories that itself, it was the way she told them to us with such familiarity and with such longing for Lahore that I had to write this to understand, how it feels to sort of just leave your home behind in one day, and to know that it now lies in another country and you can never go back and relive the days of your childhood. And the funny thing is, what really interests me about this is that my grandmother is around 95 years old now. So yes, so she doesn't understand, she doesn't remember a lot of the things that happened to her, like maybe yesterday or day before yesterday. But when you talk of Lahore, suddenly her memory is so vivid, she can tell you even the smallest details of her life there. So I think that's what inspired this poem.
Yes, yes. And mentioned a book in your poem. Does is it one of the objects your grandmother perhaps carried with her?
Yes, it is actually. It's a book that is titled Tales of the Indian Cavaliers, written by Charles Kincaid. She'd actually bought it for her younger brother as a birthday present, and then it later passed on to to my father from his uncle, and that's how it came to be in my possession. If I could just show you, this is also one of the things that she carried with her. This is
That's
her wedding
beautiful.
outfit. Yeah, it's never going to fit any of us now. I'm, very surprised how she fitted into this. But this is a wedding outfit, and this she passed on to my mother when she got married into the family. So this is also one of the objects that she carried back from Lahore.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And it must be very emotional, those objects to her, even now. Um,
Yes, yes, they are actually. And that's the thing. I mean, I've always wished that, she could go back and visit all those places once, but she's not been able to do that, unfortunately. So,
and you mentioned that she studied at Kenneth College in Lahore. So, has she ever told you about her friends or her memories from there?
oh yes, she has. In fact, that's one of the, parts of her life in Lahore that she gets very excited to talk about. When she was at Kinnaird, she had this headmistress. She was a Scottish lady. Her name was Mrs. McNair. I think. So my grandmother always talks of her when she talks of Kinnaird College. She says that she was so firm with everybody, but she really admired her. And then she tells me how they had to attend chapel every morning, and that she was president of the debating society, the Hindi debating society, and there were other societies like the current events society and everything. But also this was the time when the freedom struggle was at its peak, so everybody was involved, including the students there. So she tells me about how they would sneak out of classes to attend all these meetings and demonstrations and strikes in support of the freedom struggle. So that's one thing. And her friends, the only names I do remember her talking about are One was Mrs. Vimla Dang. I think she was a very well-known member of the Communist Party. She and her husband, Mr. Satpal Dang. So she and my grandmother were in a very regularly corresponded with each other until her death. And she lived in a village near Amritsar. So I've seen those letters, and they also talk of all those old days in Kinnaird and after that. And the other was the actress Kamini Kaushal. She was called Uma Kashyap then, if I'm correct. So my grandmother visited her once after coming to India. She went to Bombay, so she visited her, but she was not really in regular touch with anyone else as far as I know.
Oh,
So
that's lovely to hear. Because the Partition Museum has done a lot of interviews on ladies who attended the Connect College. So even we get to hear, these names such as Mrs. McNair, and it's lovely that they have those memories of pre-partition life. Yeah.
that's actually
Yeah.
great.
And so thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your beautiful poem with our viewers and with the museum. And
Thank
if
you so
anyone is interested, Amrita's poem is available. You can find it on the link provided in our bio. So thank you so much once again, Amrita.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Okay, so the second poet to join us today is Nida, and Nida has written a beautiful poem in Gurmukhi and shared it with us. So we shall be waiting for her to join us in the meantime. So while we're waiting for Nida, I'll talk a little bit about something about Connect College in Lahore. So Connect College was a school for ladies in Lahore, and a lot of the partition survivors that the museum has interviewed studied there. And apart from their memories of the partition, they have also shared wonderful memories they had while they were studying in Connect College. So we're just waiting for Nida to come online. Hello, Nida. Welcome. Okay. So
Okay,
could you
so
start
could you start
telling
telling
about?
a little bit about that?
मेरा नाम निदा है. मैं न्यू दिल्ली में बेस्ड हूँ और एज अ प्रोफेशनल आई एम वर्किंग एज अ कंटेंट मार्केटर एंड राइटिंग में जो इंटरेस्ट है वो वैसे शुरू से था, लेकिन अभी प्रोफेशनली उसको पिकअप किया है. इससे पहले काफ़ी जगह काम किया एंड आई एम वेरी इंटरेस्टेड in the history. So although I have read science all my life, but I was always inclined towards art and literature. So if you ask me कि पंजाबी का कैसे रहा, क्योंकि ये बहुत आम सवाल है जो मुझसे पूछा जाता है कि आप पंजाबी कैसे जानते हैं या क्या क्या पढ़ा या क्या बैकग्राउंड क्या रहा. तो पंजाबी का ये सीन रहा कि जब छोटे होते मेरी जो स्कूलिंग हुई है वो हुई है एक सिख स्कूल से, जहाँ पर पंजाबी एज अ मैंडेटरी सब्जेक्ट था एज वन ऑफ द लैंग्वेजेस. सो उसको शुरू शुरू में पढ़ने में थोड़ी सी दिक्कत होती थी, लेकिन आई लर्नड इट ऑल बाय माई हार्ट. अपने आप सीखा और उसके बाद तो जैसे कि एक इमोशनल कनेक्ट बन गया उस लैंग्वेज के साथ. पढ़ते पढ़ते लिटरेचर पढ़ा और ये सारी चीज़ें, तो एक इमोशनल कनेक्ट बना उसके साथ. सो इसीलिए मैं लिखना भी शुरू किया कि पंजाबी में क्यों ना लिखा जाए, जब हर लैंग्वेज में. वैसे मैं उर्दू में लिखती हूँ, पंजाबी, हिंदी, इंग्लिश इनमें भी लिखती हूँ. तो प्राइमरीली उर्दू और पंजाबी में जो है मेरा इंटरेस्ट ज़्यादा है, पोइट्री में और इन सब में. तो चलिए और ज़्यादा वक्त ना ज़ाया करते हुए मैं स्टार्ट करती हूँ
हाँ जी,
हाँ जी, प्लीज.
अपनी पोएम जो कि पंजाबी में लिखी है मैंने. तो ये एक पोएम जो है वो है एक दो सहेलियों की जिंदगी के ऊपर है जो पार्टीशन के वक्त जो है वो बिछड़ गई. तो उनकी ज़िंदगी के कुछ एनेक्डोट्स हैं जो मैंने इस नज़्म में समेटने की कोशिश की है, जिसका सिरलेख या मैं उसको उर्दू में उन्वान कहूँगी उसका नाम है याद है मैनू। तो समाप्त फरमाइए। याद है मैनू, याद है मैनू अज भी ओ सवेरा, मैं अपने कोठे दी मुंडेर तो अद्धी लटक के साडी गली विच खड़े तेरे टांगे नू जदों पहली वारी वेख्या सी। लाहौर दी ठंड ते धुप विच चमकदे तेरे सुनहरे वाल फुलकारी दी उस निक्की जी गुलाबी शॉल तो झाकदे हुंदे सन जिहड़ी तूने कस के अपने सिर ते लपेटी होई सी। याद है मैनू तेरी पहली दीद, जद अपनियां नीली अखां घुमा के तू कोठे तो लटके मेरे 8 साला वजूद वल वेख के मुस्कुराई सी। किन्नी सोहनी सी तू। तेरी खूबसूरती वेख मैनू उस दिन बहुत रश्क होया सी, पर न जाने क्यों तेरी मासूमियत नू दोबारा वेखण वास्ते मैं अपनी खिड़की तो पूरा दिन साडे पड़ोस विच तेरी आमद चुपचाप वेखदी रही। याद है मैनू वो सब कुछ। मैनू याद है उसी शाम जब तू दहलीज पे आई सी, माँ दे नाल उसी पल ही मैं सौदा लेकर आई सी। एक इल्हाम सी वाजे हुण दूर तलक असा जाना है, होली ईद दिवाली सब कुछ नाल ही आप मनाउणा है। याद है मैनू घर विच बह के घर घर आपां खेडदे रहना, इमला लिखना नकलां करना चित्तर कट्ठे झेलदे रहना। लाल तेरे जो सैंडल सी ना सोहणे बहुते लगदे सी ओ, नारकली दे चिट्टे कुर्ते नाल बड़े ही फबदे सी ओ। जिद कर करके तेरे जैसे सैंडल मेरे ਲਈ भी आए ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਨਵੇਂ ਲੀਰਿਆਂ ਨਾਲ ਦੀਵਾਲੀ ਉੱਤੇ ਪਾਏ। याद है साडा अलहड़पन ਉਹ ਪਹਿਲੇ इश्क ਦਾ ਪਾਗਲਪਨ, ਪਹਿਲੇ ਖਤ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਵੀ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਛੁਪ ਛੁਪ ਕੇ ਬਤਲਾਈ ਸੀ, ਲੈ ਕੇ ਸੁਪਨੇ ਅੱਖਾਂ ਵਿੱਚ ਝੱਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਅਕਲ ਦਿਵਾਈ ਸੀ। ਸਹੁਰੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਭੁੱਲ ਨਾ ਜਾਈ ਇਸ ਰਿਸ਼ਤੇ ਦਾ ਮਾਣ ਨਿਭਾਈ, ਇਹੀ ਸਬਕ ਮੈਂ ਜਪਦੇ ਰਹਿਣਾ ਨਾਲ ਤੇਰੇ ਮੈਂ ਜਦ ਵੀ ਪੈਣਾ। ਮਸਤ ਮਲੰਗੀ ਜਿੰਦ ਸੀ ਚਲਦੀ ਫਿਰ ਆਇਆ ਤੇਰੇ ਵਿਆਹ ਦਾ ਰੋਜ਼। याद है मैनू अज भी सब कुछ तेरे विआह दे 2 दिन मगरों अजब सी वहशत घेरे सी। बंटवारा है मुल्क दा होना अहम खबर ए फैली सी। पाकिस्तान एक नवा मुल्क ਇਹ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਸੀ, ਸਾਡੇ ਘਰ ਤੋਂ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਾਹਰ ਕੌਣ ਕਿਵੇਂ ਕੱਢ ਸਕਦਾ ਸੀ। ਪਰ ਇਹ ਹੁਣ ਸੱਚਾਈ ਸੀ, ਇੱਕ ਕੌੜੀ ਸੱਚਾਈ। याद है मैनू ओ भी वेला तेरे अब्बू मेरे बाबा, तेरी अम्मी मेरी अम्मा लड़ लग के जो रोए सन, रात दी उस तारीकी विच किन्ने ही सुपने खोए सन। फिर एक टांगा आंदा है जिस विच साडा सामान चढ़ा, बेवतनी दा खौफ की हुंदा इस गल दा एहसास जगा। याद है मैनू अज भी सब कुछ किस शिद्दत दी हुक सी उठी, मन विच मेरे तेरे लई वतन मेरे दी मिट्टी लई। बलवे खून खराबे चारों पासे मैनू दिसदे सन, तेरे सौरे घर दे दर ते भी कुछ मंजर ऐसे सन। एक रात विच की कुछ बदला रहना है इतिहास गवाह, कर दे कर जो लुट गए सारे हाकम नूसी की परवाह। वांग असीरा हालत सी जो सोचा तैनू लिखांगी, की गुजरी साडे उत्ते सारा हाल मैं दसांगी। याद है मैनू पहली वारी गल जद आपां कीती सी, सिसकी तेरी रुकदी नहीं सी, मैं थे अखरू पीती सी। मिलने दी एक आस जो सी हुण बच्चियां नाल ही बन्नी सी, आस ही बन के रह जानी है इसदा इल्म भी किसतों सी। फोन जो एक दिन वज्जा करते रात सी ओ भी तूफानी, फोन जो एक दिन वज्जा करते रात सी ओ भी तूफानी। रुखसार भैणे मेरिए तू मेरे लई सी लाफानी, तू मेरे लई सी लाफानी। शुक्रिया।
ब्यूटीफुल। इनमें सोनी तरीके
इनमें सोनी तरीके
किसी ने
किसी ने ऐड
किए के सारे
के
सारे
सारे सारे
रहेगा
रहेगा
ऐसा
ऐसा
is really
is
beautiful
really
the way
beautiful
you
the way you
and
Yeah.
so could you
and
tell me a
so
bit
could you tell
about
me a bit
the
about
inspiration
the
behind
inspiration
writing this
behind
book?
writing this book?
या सो बेसिकली इंस्पिरेशन अगर आप मुझे पूछें तो इस नज़्म में मैंने अपने सारे जज्बात जो हैं वो निचोड़ के रखे हैं। तो जैसे कि बचपन में दादी नानियों से हम सुनते आए हैं, सब सब पार्टीशन देख चुके हैं, सबके साथ जो जो हुआ, तो उनकी कहानियाँ और कुछ जो अपना इंटरेस्ट रहा पंजाबी लिटरेचर में, और जो स्पेशली पंजाब जो था सबसे ज़्यादा अफेक्टेड एरिया था पार्टीशन के दौरान। तो वहाँ की बहुत ही ग्रैनुलर लेवल पे कुछ स्टोरीज देखने को मिली, पढ़ने को मिली, जिससे कि ये थोड़ी इंसाइट आई कि क्यों ना इसके ऊपर कुछ लिखा जाए। और कुछ अपना पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस भी ऐसा रहा कि आई हैव लॉस्ट अ फ्रेंड, तो उसके साथ मैं बहुत टाइम से टच में नहीं थी, लेकिन कुछ पता चला कि कुछ बहुत ही ट्रैजिक सर्कमस्टांसेस में शी पास्ड अवे। तो ये सारी चीज़ें मिल के आई वॉज थिंकिंग अबाउट हर एंड देन ऑल दिस थिंग्स, सो ऑल दिस थिंग्स जस्ट एक्यूमुलेटेड and all it came together and I just poured it down in one nazm. So this is the basic inspiration I got.
Thank you so much,
Thank you so
Pranjali.
much, Pranjali.
And
Thank you.
so lovely
And so lovely
to join
to
us.
join us.
Likewise, same here.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Bye
Thank you.
giving me
Bye
this
bye.
opportunity. Bye bye. Thank you.
We shall now move on to our third speaker, Madhuri, who occasionally writes about her Sindhi culture and identity. So we'll just be waiting for her to come on. Hello, Madhuri.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, all right. Okay, hello. Hi.
Hello. So we're so happy that you can join us today.
Same here, likewise.
Could you start off with letting us know a little bit about yourself?
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm in my final year doing literature, and I initially started writing about a lot of things. Generally, I would write a lot of meta poetry, but in my first year, we had a paper on subaltern literature, and that's when the first, even hearing the definition of subaltern had me connect subalterns to Sindhis. And that's the moment where I started thinking more about this and I started reading more about this. So as a group project with my friends, we all presented on Sindhi literature and how Sindhis are subalterns. And I think a lot of the writing which I found was very painful as well, because these are things that I hadn't heard directly from my parents and my grandparents. So what also happened then was I wasn't able to understand a lot of the writing because I don't really know how to read or write Sindhi because of how language has diluted here as well, because I'm in Chennai. So then I think what was primary for me then is to find writings that were translated in English. And I think that's one of the things I also think a lot about, and I try to write in English so that there are other Sindhi people who are out there looking for some hope like this. I think this would help them. So that's my primary inspiration.
Lovely. So could you please go on by reciting your poem?
Yeah, sure. So this poem is called Sindhi, and I wrote it on the Sindhi Language Day, which was recently on April 10th. So I'll start off. The remains of my mother tongue are alien to my eyes, unrecognizable to my fingers. As I write of my tongue with the help of another, I write with the guilt of silence. If I could paint her, this verse would have been translated for your curiosity. I speak it over and over, hoping it transcends boundaries, echoes to every Sindhi, that we can never be alone because we are everywhere. Sindh will live through her children, and the Sindh we yearn for is in the song of her existence a reassurance that we are home regardless.
Beautiful. And so since your poem is on the Sindhi language, is there any other relation you have with it, maybe through your parents or your grandparents, apart from what you mentioned before?
Yeah, so one thing is that my grandfather used to be very persistent about using Sindhi at home. He would encourage us to learn other languages, and this is one thing I have found very interesting, because even when I'm following Sindhi rituals and Sindhi language, even when I'm using it, we're also encouraged to learn other languages and to learn other rituals and all of that. So when you experience Sindh, it's also in connection with other rituals and other gods. So even when we're praying Sindhi gods, even Sindhi temples here in Chennai, like Sindhu Southern, these also have other gods, like other Hindu gods. So to me, one of the most interesting things is how you don't have to exclusively experience any one identity. So when I talk about the dilution, I also feel that the more and more I learn about the loss that there is, there's also the importance to hold it closer. So I think that's what I try to do in my writing.
Yes, definitely. And also, since the whole province of Sindh was lost at the time of partition, I feel it's really important for one to maintain and kind of save, protect that identity that you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, so
Um,
in one of
and
the explorations for that seminar, I came across this one line by Narayan Sham, which was like, Sham, wherever Sindhi is spoken, Sindh is there. So I think in such writings, you also find the essence of how I experience Sindh today.
mhm,
Yeah.
definitely. And so, are there any customs or traditions, like typically Sindhi traditions, you still practice at home, which came across from the border?
Yeah. So I think there is a lot of, first of all, the fabric, the Ajrak fabric. And this is a very Sindhi fabric, right? So it's very difficult to find around here. I also tried to write about a poem about palazzos, because how it's gained a trend, it's become a trend today. But it's initially said to be a Sindhi lifestyle, part of their clothing. So then it was very interesting for me to see that how today it's accessible because it's trendy. So then that's one thing I also write about. I also think we follow all these festivals like Cheti Chand, which is like the Sindhi New Year. Again, here through the Partition Museum page, I actually came across other Sindhis around the world, and they sort of followed me after you shared my poems. So I think through them, I also get to know how Sindh is experienced in different parts of the world, which also helps me write other pieces of mine. So I think one of the things I found was Cheti Chand is celebrated in India, and I don't. So one of my friends from Lahore, he told me that it's not. So he didn't know what it was, but he was a Sindhi. So then we had this discussion, and I told him what it was. So I think Cheti Chand is like the Sindhi New Year, and such differences exist. But as much as I started from a point of looking at the loss of Sindhi culture and language, I feel it's also a good thing, because if they have a different day to celebrate Sindh, then there are more days that Sindh is being celebrated, which is always a good thing. Yeah.
Yes, and that's wonderful to hear. And as you may have known, the Partition Museum actually opened a new section on Sindh recently, and that documents the experience of Sindh during partition through
Right.
the oral histories and the objects and the documents that we've kind of collected of Sindhi migration and refugees.
All
So
right.
it's been
Right.
lovely having you join us
Thank you
today.
so much. Likewise.
And yes, and it's always a pleasure, knowing more about Sindh, which whose partition history is slowly, being known. So
Yeah.
thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much as well. Thank you.
Bye bye. So we had a lovely time knowing more about Sindh and the experience of Sindh during partition. And now we shall move on to our next poet, who is Harjot. He'll be joining us from Italy, and he has also written about his grandmother's experience during the partition. So we'll just be waiting for him. Hello, Harjot. Welcome to
Hi there.
Partition Museum's open mic event.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Harjot. Hello, everyone. So I'm living in Italy since 2008 because my family is living here too. And I'm a student of foreign language and literature, and I'm a master's student. And I study English and German. And yeah, this is all. I grew up in India, and I was 12 when we came here, and I originally come from Punjab.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So could you please recite your poem with us?
Oh,
To us?
yes. So this poem is entitled The Scattered Identities, August 1947, and it's all about objects which create a sort of identity around my grandma, yeah. So, in August 1947, in the clear light of day, the stones my grandma used to play with started being described as Indian and Pakistani. Since Hindus and Muslims wanted to get divorced, they went to the Supreme Court, where the judge was a British man, who easily traced a line on the heart of a sacred land. He said, "This is Hindustan and this is Pakistan." A separation, a falling glass was being materialized. It could be touched. It was becoming a broken glass. Many fine pieces were to be collected between the shores of burning nights. My Hindu Indian baby grandma was brought to Hindustan with old coins, jewelry, her old kajal, long heavy earrings, necklaces with broken turquoise pearls, old golden rings, decorated bangles, some broken Urdu words in her Punjabi, floating lilies of her childhood memories, and the sand of August 1947. She enshrined this museum in her sandook, a shrine of her dowry from Pakistan, in which restless souls of raped women still live. She told me once, "These scattered identities belong to my body, to my red-painted eyes which saw the agony and tears of separation, to these decorated ears which heard screams of wraiths, to my neck which was hugged many times, to these fingers and arms which touched the blood of the partition. Now I understand that her identity is made of pieces and small meaningless objects and suffer separations."
Thank you so much for sharing that beautifully written poem on your grandmother. And apart from these memories, has your grandmother ever shared happy memories to you about her life in pre-partition?
Yeah, actually, she doesn't remember a lot. She was just around 4 years old when the partition happened. In fact, she describes the partition as the wind, happens immediately, start blowing immediately. And in fact, I wanted to reproduce this sound of the wind in the final lines of my poem by saying, "Small, meaningless objects of suffered separations," because I think it is important. And she always told me two anecdotes which I remember. The first one is related to her life in the pre-partition India. And she always told me, obviously in Punjabi, of course she cannot speak English, that she used to play a lot with her friends. And she was a rebel and naughty girl, baby girl. And after arguing and being upset, she used to climb the wall on the front wall of their house and sit on the top of this wall. And when she told me these stories in Punjabi, they bring a bit of smile on my face. And the second one, which I find really interesting, is more spiritual. She always told me that when they were coming back to India, they didn't have a lot of food to eat, and they had only these kala chanas, the black chickpeas, and she compares the taste of these kala chana to the taste of hope and positivity in her mouth. I find it really interesting.
Yes, we in fact, the Partition Museum was fortunate enough to interview someone called Sudarshana Kumari, who also in fact mentioned these Kala Chanas, and she talked about how when the whole family had to migrate and walk from their house, and the first refugee camp they came upon, they were given Kala Chanas. So for her
Yeah,
also, their taste of hope and
yeah, exactly.
yes, yes. So it's lovely to see, the similarities between the experiences that different partition survivors had.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So you also mention a lot of objects in your poem. So does your grandmother still have those with her, and which are her favorite ones out of those?
Yeah, so actually, she always told me that they couldn't bring a lot because, while they were coming back, people used to loot a lot on the road. And I know that they successfully managed to bring back some dishes and some blankets. And yeah, and what in our house, there is a sanduk containing in which there is this old bowl, and it contains some old rusty coins, and then there are also some jewelry. And personally, so my grandma, I know what is precious for her because I'm the first person in our family who's bringing back this reflection on the issues of identity and partition, because nobody cared much until a few years ago. And so I know what is precious for her. And for me, these coins are important because, by touching this rusty oldness of these coins, that distant historical moment that you have in your mind becomes a sort of reality in your hand. So you can touch and leave it. And I really, love this kind of philosophy which these objects bring back.
Yes, definitely. Material memory is also really important for partition
Yeah,
survival. Yes.
I think they connect in some ways more generations, to this
Yeah.
historical event, which was really a tragedy for all over Hindustan.
So, what exactly, since you mentioned that you're the first one to actually talk to your grandmother about this, what inspired you to, go on this journey of documenting your grandmother's memories?
So, actually, when I try to speak to, with them about these things, there's a sort of silence start being there because obviously they don't remember a lot. They were really children, babies. And so I wanted to, collect these things because even, my roots are, water with the blood of the partition. So it is impossible to live without documenting about your past. So, I started with asking them about these things. And even last week we were talking about these things, but they didn't want to tell me more because they say, "Tenu ki chahida hai na to eh ho gaya bas assi ithe aage bas theek hai na." They say things like this, and so there's a sort of I think the question I ask them are like a bit uncomfortable for them. So I try to collect what I can, but of course I know that I won't manage to collect as much as I want.
Yes, but it's also a great effort that you've done in, trying to collect those memories, because we at the Partition Museum also go and interview people who experience the partition. So we also face this, dilemma of like how much a person is willing to share with us.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's really great that you're able to do this, especially with someone who's comfortable with you, like your grandmother. So,
yeah,
and it's a great way of connecting with in a way, your personal history.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much once again for joining us and for sharing your beautiful poem with us. It was lovely having you here.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Have a nice day.
So, with this, we come to our very last poet, Vinita, who's actually an award-winning poet and writer. And she will be talking about one of the objects in our museum. So, we'll just wait for her to join us.
Hello.
Hello, Vinita. Welcome to the Partition Museum's open mic event today. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Bombay.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And it's a pleasure to have you. Could you start off with just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, well, firstly, I'm not as young as all your other guests. They
No, but
were all,
it's lovely to have you with us.
thank you, thank you. I'm a veteran poet. I've been writing for the past 20 years. And I live in Bombay, based in Bombay, but I've been writing for a very long time. I'm the author of 4 books of poetry. And the subject of partition has always moved me, although I don't have a direct, legacy of partition, so to speak. But I do have relatives who have undergone this journey of partition, and as a human event, as a human historic event, it's always moved me very deeply, and I've always wanted to write as much as I could about it. So.
That's lovely to hear. And we're so glad that you have written about this important event in our history. So, could you please continue with reciting your beautiful poem?
Sure. So my poem is titled Partition's Bride. Her coat hangs in the Museum of Partition, a silk embroidered coat woven in pink, orange, and gold, cleansed of blood stains, its blemishes disbanded by the solvent of time, membrane by membrane, tear by tear. It whispers about how her father had bundled her into the train, thrust the coat in her hands, and urged her to flee the village, as though to save her was to save himself, her escape his own. The wounded, wet moon had drowned in the guttural downpour that August, pale with unfinished love stories, severings, its damp heart pummeled into alleys of no return. Years later, she had become a bride and wore the brocade garment, her refugee coat. More years later, when the museum volunteers approached her for a souvenir of partition, she'd parted with it, dry-eyed, a wound on display, laceration of a journey scabbed by loss. The earth holds voices and water, memories of fathers dying, of lovers' corpses. Daughters hold history in their footsteps, measuring descent in footfalls, clutching wishes in fists, like squirrels holding acorns in their fleeing hands. And memory the only yardstick to gauge how deep the hurt went. Thank you.
Thank you for that beautiful poem. It, in fact, wonderfully captures the emotions behind an object, not only someone's mundane attachment with it, but also the history of partition which gets embedded within those objects. And since it's an object in our museum and it's one of our most well-known objects, could you tell us a little bit about how you decided to write on this?
Yeah, that's an interesting story actually, because I've never really visited the museum in real time in Amritsar. But in August, I think it was the 4th of August in 2017, there's a very lovely place here called the Godrej Cultural Lab, which has events and exhibitions, and So they had this event on to mark the 70 years of partition history, and I had gone to attend that event. And Malika Ahluwalia of the Partition Museum was there, and she presented a slideshow of the objects housed in the museum. And when the slide of this coat appeared, this lovely brocade, beautiful coat in pink and orange, something just stirred in my heart, and it just touched me so deeply. And then she went on to tell us the story of that coat, which is also what the poem is about. It's really based on the true story of that coat. So it was the story that moved me even further, and then I decided to write a poem on it. And I felt that that you don't have to experience death to write about it, nor do you have to experience a disease to actually suffer But in the same way, you don't have to see an object in real time or see it personally, but even the virtual image of it can inspire emotions inside you, and then you can write about it. So that's what I did.
Yes, exactly. I mean, uh, one needn't have to see an object to, experience or to feel the emotions that the person who owns it experience. That's what we at the museum really hope to convey to our viewers and visitors through our this various stories that are linked to these objects of partition. And so you spoke that you saw this object on the presentation. So, is there any other object of the museum that really inspires you to write a similar poem?
Yes, actually, there were many things. But first was one was more of a concept than an object, and that was the concept of the Tree of Hope, I think it's called, where visitors to the museum can, place a leaf with a note on it. Leaf in the sense of paper note saying, expressing their views and expressing their emotions after visiting the museum. I thought that's a wonderful idea because it connects, everybody, the past to the present in a way. I love that idea, and I believe the trees actually has been installed now.
Yes, yes. And we've been fortunate enough to get so many people, so many of our viewers of different generations, just leaving their messages behind and in different languages from different regions. It's beautiful to actually see those leaves and read the messages that people leave behind.
That's wonderful.
So we
And
look forward to maybe
yeah, I would
get
love
a
to. I
poem
would love
on
to visit.
that.
Oh, yes. And actually, I also was very moved by the sight of vessels and utensils, the thalis and the glasses and the lotas. They're so personal, and yet they're so evocative of a lifestyle and of a family having meals together, and the women folk of a family handling those vessels and utensils for hundreds and millions of times. And now they're there in the museum, which is extremely moving. So I think I'd just love to visit the museum and see all this for myself.
Yes, we would love to have you visit us and just, listen to more stories that these objects have. And in fact, as you mentioned, the stories behind these kitchen utensils is so important and so emotional because this was, in a way, a mother's way of trying to figure out what her family and what her children will do once they migrate or during the migration process. At least they have something they can cook in or store food in. Those basic needs that a person has. It
Yeah,
really showed through these objects and how they are still kept with families even till today.
yeah, it's
So
absolutely very moving.
yes, and about the Pulkari coat, that actually
Yeah.
has a very beautiful story linked to it. In
Okay.
fact, we at the museum we regard it as one of our famous
I,
love stories.
okay.
Yes, because so the Pulkari code actually belonged to this lady called Preetham Kaur, and along with that, we've also showcased a briefcase which belonged to Bhagwan Singh. So
Okay.
both of them were engaged to each other before partition,
I see.
and at the time of migration, the families lost in touch, and she was put onto a train with her younger brother and sent across, and then she came in touch with her family much later. And it
Okay.
was at this point at a refugee camp that Bhagwan Singh and Preetham Kaur managed to just meet each other again, and they decided to get engaged again and
Oh,
married each other after that. So
incredible.
it's really a story of how love even stayed strong after this whole ordeal of partition.
That's
So
in,
we really treasure that story, and we're so happy that you could write a poem on it for us. I mean,
thank
it's beautiful.
thank you so much. And that's an incredible love story. It's really
Yes,
beautiful.
yes. In fact, it's very inspiring that despite all the terrible things that were going on, one
Yeah.
had hope like this.
Yeah. Yes, and
Yeah.
love sort of found its way,
Yes,
back
definitely,
into their life.
definitely. Yes.
Incredible.
And so thank you so much for joining us
Pleasure.
and for, gracing us with your presence. It was lovely having you with
Thank
us.
you for inviting me. This has been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We are so thankful to all our poets who joined us today and shared their wonderful poems and memories with us. It was very emotional and yet very inspiring that the younger generation is staying strong to its roots and trying to connect with their roots and trying to record and preserve the memories of their ancestors. So with this, we conclude our very first online poetry open mic event, and it was wonderful to to celebrate International Museum Day with these poets and with you, all of our viewers. And thank you again for joining us today while sitting at home and for letting us bring you our museum to you at home. And we look forward to interacting with more of our global audience through events like this, similar events like this in the future. And all the poems which were recited today will be available on the Partition Museum's social media handles, and all the links will be provided on our bio. Thank you so much once again for joining us today. Bye-bye.